When I originally discovered that they have these RGB floodlights for like your house and your garden and things like that, I thought to myself, wow, I wonder if those would be good for video lighting. Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to talk to you about lighting. When speaking with content creators about lighting, I've had some very interesting conversations. So, first of all, I am somewhat of an expert when it comes to lights and lighting, especially when it comes to video lighting. A lot of my core classes at university were centered around lighting, and not just lighting, but how light interacts with cameras. A lot of this was actually work done in the field utilizing photography lights, softboxes, studio lighting, understanding how cameras and lighting interact with each other, how lenses interact with lighting. My education itself spent a lot of time on cameras and lighting. So you would think that when I talk to people about lighting and I make suggestions about lights, that they might listen. But that hasn't always been the response. I've had a lot of people who they seem to want to spend a lot of money thinking that that's going to solve their lighting issue, or they'd rather spend money to save themselves some so-called effort on not having to deal with unconventional lights. So let's first talk about why lighting is important. Lighting is the second most important aspect of your content creation setup. It's more important than your camera. In a lot of ways, your camera's quality is tied directly to lighting. If I turn off just a couple of my lights in here, you can noticeably see how different the image looks. If I turn off my extra lights and put the first ones back on, you can see how different the camera interacts with this lighting setup. The right lighting and the right lights will do everything to get the best image you possibly can out of your camera. This is an AverMedia 4K webcam, and trust me, without the proper lighting and the wrong settings on the camera, it's going to look way worse than this. So if your camera doesn't look good on stream or in videos, it could literally come down to lighting. So how much lighting do you need? And how much light's too much light? And here you can see this is what my full lighting setup looks like. I have all my lights on. They're all LED lights of one format or another, which I will be sharing with you in a moment. But it drastically changes the image quality. And you could get away with less light. Now I have less lighting, and the image quality still looks pretty good. In fact, maybe this is even a bit more preferable, especially on my eyes. I want to share with you the lights that I use that I find to be extremely affordable, highly versatile, and maybe even better than those more expensive light options on the market. Getting good lighting doesn't mean you have to spend hundreds of dollars. Expensive lights are often just more expensive. Knowing how to set up and deal with your room, your camera, and your lights is a much more important skill than spending a lot of money and hoping that that's just going to fix the issue. In this video, I want to focus on subject lighting, meaning lighting you, the subject, on the camera. In a future video, we'll talk about chroma keying and using RGB lights to help light a green screen and even maybe not use a green screen at all, given your situation. So first, let's talk about traditional video lighting and photography lighting. Typically, what you'd find if you go to a photo shoot or a video shoot, you're going to see these large soft boxes and different lights in a studio environment, maybe ceiling lights, things like that. And I used to use these exclusively. Now, this is before we had a large amount of options for LED lights. A lot of the LED lights back when I was using these soft boxes, they weren't very good, they didn't get very bright, and they didn't have a lot of options and settings. Nowadays, the story is very different. As you can see, these softbox kits, they range from $80 for 2 lights, $60, $70. So what are the downsides with these? First of all, the stand and the lights themselves are very big. You need a lot of space. You need space on the floor for the legs, which takes up a lot of room, and you need space for the light themselves, these are not very good, especially in my situation. I'm cramped in a corner desk in my room. I don't have space for these giant soft boxes. I would have to wall mount them, and that would be a real eyesore in my room. And that's the other problem. These giant soft boxes, you basically either have to tear them down and set them up over and over, which is a lot of work. One of the complaints people have had with the alternative setup that I'm going to provide is the amount of extra work it seems you have to do in order to set the lights up. And I'm going to dispel that myth right now. If you buy one of these softbox kits, the amount of work that it takes to actually assemble these lights is significant. They do not come assembled. You have to put the softbox together, you have to screw the bulbs in, you have to mount them to the stands, you have to get them set up, you have to make room for them. There's a lot of work in dealing with these lights. And that's just an initial thing. You set up the lights and you leave them. The same thing with the alternative that I'm going to recommend. But one of the things I want you to notice is the price. It's $86 for these. Some of the more popular alternatives these days for streamers seem to be these Elgato Lights, which they are kind of cool that you can associate them with different things, tech like the Stream Deck, and you can set them up to automatically turn on and stuff. But my lights can be easily configured with a remote or even with an app on your phone. That's not that difficult to deal with, and I don't think the price difference between what I'm going to suggest next and the Elgato for $200, that's just one light for $200. Ideally, one Elgato key light is not going to be enough. You're going to want at least two lights. And so 2 key lights, that's $400. So let's look at the alternative, what you've been waiting for. So this isn't the complete package. These are just the lights. This is where we're going to start. When I originally discovered that they have these RGB floodlights for like your house and your garden and things like that, I thought to myself, wow, I wonder if those would be good for video lighting. And right now, these are the lights I am using. These are fantastic lights. It's $35 in the US for 2 lights. So that's just the lights. That doesn't really get us our complete package. We still need a softbox and we still need a way to mount them. Now, how you mount them is kind of up to you. So you could take these lights and combine them with this 4-piece diffuser, lamp sock, soft diffuser lamp cover. That's a mouthful. And get a really nice effect out of just these lights. So mounting aside, what I want to do is I want to turn off all the lights that are not those lights that I'm using in my setup and show you the range that these offer. I have these turned down quite a bit right now, as you can see. It's maybe a little muted and I need a bunch more light. It does come with an app which will let you control the RGB. If I click this, I can choose different colors, and you can see I'm blue and I'm red and I'm greenish. And you can also change these lights to be different colors. It's not all the color temperatures available that you'd want available, but there's enough here that you could get a really good setting for white balance. And now let's turn them all the way up. This is just using these 2 lights. Just 2 lights with the little softbox diffuser on top of them. Just these 2 lights is enough to get a really high quality image out of your camera. Now, would I suggest only using 2 lights? You could do it. You could get away with it. And these would be enough to light a green screen especially. So if you wanted to put these maybe on the floor to help fill in some areas of your green screen, you could use these. You can also use them as subject lighting on you. They look fantastic. But for the sake of my eyes, I'm going to supplement these lights with another pair of lights. So these other lights, unfortunately, these are the ones that I was going to recommend. I don't necessarily like this having to open my phone and use an app. I prefer to use a remote like this because it's very easy to just turn them up, turn them down, grab the remote, put them on colors, whatever you need. You can just hit a button and set them to what you need. I do prefer having a remote, but unfortunately, the industry for these RGB floodlights has been moving away from the remotes and more towards the app. Now, I've been testing this app since I got these lights for the past few days, and they reliably turn on and turn off. I haven't had any issues with the app not working. I did have an issue initially where one of the lights wasn't responding. I had to unplug it and plug it back in, and since then I've had no issues with it connecting to the app. It just showed up in the app right away and worked. I would suggest buying 4 of these lights and mounting them in front of you as your subject lighting. Buying 4 of these lights would allow you to kind of keep the lighting at a reasonable level so that it doesn't really hurt your eyes and give yourself fatigue from the bright lights blasting you. You can get away with lower lighting levels and less light with just some extra lights, and it really helps fill in. By turning on my final 2 lights in my setup, that's right, I'm using 3 lights on each side, 6 lights total. So this is what my lighting setup looks like. It's going to seem more intense on the photograph than it actually is in real life. These lights are actually significantly dimmed compared to how they're going to look in the photograph. They're very easy on my eyes. So I would suggest at least 4 of these lights. You could put 2 up high and 2 kind of, down low and get enough lighting out of that. Another good option for supplemental lighting are these magnifying glass lights. I really like these. I have the same diffusers on these lights, and these are really nice because I like the magnifying glass for doing micro soldering and electronics repair. They mount to the desk really nicely, and if you can't mount them to your desk, they come with a nice little base stand so you can just sit it on your desk. Not that I would recommend it. I think it would be better to clamp it to the side of your desk, given that you're probably going to be moving these a lot. But they do have these stands. Alternatively, I use these stands to help mount my cameras on some mic arms. So you can actually double dip and use the side mount for the light and the desk mount, the desk stand, for a different arm, and maybe use that as a stand for your cameras. Alternatively, there's also these, which are just straight up ring lights, no magnifying glass. So if you just want something that does the same thing without the magnifying glass and maybe save a little bit of money, you can grab one of these. And the really nice thing about these is that not only can you desk mount these, you can actually wall mount these. Sometimes I like to stream back there on the couch. So I was able to wall mount one of these ring lights over there to get lighting over there. And just one ring light over there is a significant amount of light to keep me lit. So they're pretty powerful. You can get away with a lot. But I still recommend that you put those soft boxes on any of these lights that you use. It's going to help diffuse the light. So let's talk about the room lighting. As you can see, I've got red light going on in my room back here. Now this is an upgraded version of what I'm using, but you can just grab more of these RGB lights. I use these. They're kind of big. I think the smaller ones do a good enough job, but I want to show you what I'm using in my room. I'm using an older version of these lights. They don't have the ability to change the color temperature for the white light. They've just got one version of white, and they seem to keep changing the color temperature between the upgrades on these, so I can't tell you what color temperature you're going to get. I wouldn't use these to light you. The higher wattage means they don't dim as much. They're going to be significantly too bright when they're at their dimmest setting. I actually prefer these ones, even though they use an app instead of a remote. The fact that you can do the 2 different color temperatures of white and kind of blend them means that you have more flexibility with getting your color temperature right for white balance. So let's talk about mounting the lights. This is a really, really affordable option for very easily mounting your lights. So you have a couple of options with these lights. In the back of the light, there is actually kind of an arm with some holes on it, which means you could directly mount these to the wall. Another option is to use something like a cheap microphone stand. And the way you make this work is by removing the head, the mic arm itself, and you can actually just take the bolting mount out of this and put it right through the hole. Take that whole mounting section off, slide the bracket from the light inside of the bolt on the arm, and tie it down that way. Alternatively, you could also just use zip ties to zip tie the thing down to the arm. Whatever works for you. So here's our price breakdown for an entire setup. If you're looking at just getting 4 lights, subject lighting, to light you, the soft boxes, a couple of sets of soft boxes so that you can maybe double up on them and have extra, 4 mic arms so that you can mount each light to an arm. You may not need to do that, so that price can vary. And since they're RGB lights, you can use them for more than just lighting you when you're making video. You can use them to make your room, have some light. You could just use them to light your room up in red. You don't have to use them all the time. Your Elgato isn't something you're going to use to light your room up with RGB colors. You can actually get more out of these other lights. You're looking at a complete light setup compared to just one Elgato key light. It's quite a savings. You would be able to use these lights for as long as they last. And hopefully that would be a very long time, if not longer than you possibly use them. So there you have it. $145, $146 for a bunch of lights that you can use to do cool lighting in your room, not just lighting you for video, versus $200 for one Elgato key light or a couple of giant soft boxes for $100. I think that these lights are definitely the way to go. They're way more versatile. Having to use the app, it's not that bad. They do a really good job. They get really bright. So I'll have all these lights linked in the description below. Now, they do have lights with remotes, but what you need to look out for is something that has whatever you get, you may want to get everything. I don't know, a year from now, this product may not even exist anymore. It may be a completely different product. Some of the lights that I've bought within the past year or so, they're just not on Amazon anymore. They seem to be upgrading and changing these lights over time, and in doing that, you kind of can't buy them anymore. My original lights that I was using that came with this remote, I can't find these. I'm sure they're out there somewhere, but they're just not on Amazon anymore. It's really unfortunate because I do like having these with the remote. But the app's not bad too. As long as it's stable and it's working, that's all that matters. As long as your lights turn on when you want them to turn on, that's all that matters, right? So that's subject lighting. In the next video, I'm going to discuss green screen lighting and show you a cool green screen trick with using these RGB lights with a white wall or a plain background. You may not even need a green screen at all. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video and you want to see more. If you guys have any comments or questions, leave them below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.